In this program, we're going to just test with a very specific string method, just to do a little investigation into how it works. So import your scanner, create a scanner object. What we'll do is we'll have a couple strings here with just arbitrary names, S1 and S2. And then we'll prompt the user to enter two strings. So system.out.print enter the first string. And then we'll have S1 get the value of input.next line, just like that. And then we'll do the same thing for the second one. So this one will be S2, and of course we will put second string. There we go. Okay, so what we want to do is we're going to test out a string method called CompareTo. So what we'll do is we'll output the result, just so we can see what's happening, of S1 dot compare to S2. So it does matter. We'll discover it does matter what the order of the two strings is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the program, and we'll try some different input. Okay, so imagine that our first string was apple, and our second string was watermelon. Okay, so we get the very mysterious number minus 22. I would encourage you, if you want to just do some investigation on your own to try and figure out what this is doing, I would strongly advise that. Apple, let's say this next one is going to be banana. Now you can see that we only get a minus 1. So what is the difference between putting in apple banana, which gives us minus 1, and apple watermelon, which gave us, I think it was minus 22 or something? So now, what if we reverse those? So I'm going to run, and this time I'm going to type in watermelon, apple, 22. Okay, that's the same number, but it's positive this time. And I will try banana and apple, and we'll get positive 1. So what's happening here is there's a subtraction going on. And the number that we get generated is the difference between our two strings. So you can see that A is really close to B. How many letters off is it? It's 1. And from apple to watermelon, it's 22 is the difference. So there's a subtraction that's going on here that's very important. We can use that for a whole bunch of different things. So the way it works here is it's going to take S1, which is banana, and then subtract S2, which is apple. So imagine the value of this is 2, the value of this is 1, and then we're going to get a result of 1. It's a little more complicated than that. Basically, each character has its own value. So what happens if we enter the same thing twice? So if I put in apple and then apple, we get a 0. So that's kind of like saying, if I get 1 minus 1, well, yeah, we're going to get 0. So when you get 0, these are essentially the same. So let's see what happens just by carrying the difference to the next letter. So if I have apple and then axolotl, what we get is a minus 8, which is going to be the difference between the P and the X. So So alphabetically, it's a little bit difficult to predict what is happening here in terms of the number in a way that'll make it useful for us. But pretty much what we want to do is we want to use the fact that it's either negative or positive to say which string is larger than the other. Now, here's an interesting situation. I'm going to put in apple, and then we'll put in banana, but in all caps this time. So now, instead of the difference between these two being 1, and technically it should be -1 because this is the larger one, we get a difference of 31. And then if I reverse them, banana, apple, we get -31. So the problem here is capital letters are in a completely different set of characters than the lowercase letters. And they will always be first. So, for example, apple, banana gives us a positive number. And then, which means that this should be like lower down than that, which it isn't. But if I do apple, watermelon, we still get a positive. Like, it's very difficult to figure out what's happening here. But it's so close because the W is actually near the end of the capital letters, and the A is near the beginning of the lowercase letters, so we get a number difference that's quite close here. So what you want to do is when you're using CompareTo, you might want to do something in terms of seeing if you can make a comparison and make sure that the letters are always lowercase. So here's a trick to achieving that. What we want to do is, because input.nextLine, it generates a string result that gets stored in S1. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a .to lowercase, and what it's going to do is it's going to take the string generated by the first part and then turn it into a lowercase string. So what actually gets stored in here is a lowercase version of whatever was entered by the user. So this is a lovely solution to correct any, accidental uppercase letters that the user might do. You don't always want to do this, especially with, situations that could be case sensitive. But in this case, we don't need to bother with that. So if I run this again, this is what it's going to do. So the first string, if I go apple and then banana, we get a -1. And then if I run it again and we get apple and then capital banana, we get -1 because the strings are read in as lowercase strings. So it's easier to make that comparison.